Do you know, is my sound okay?
Yeah, you sound good. And we'll check with the audience as well to make sure. I'm always paranoid something crazy will happen. It never does until today. All right, just saw the notification go out. So people should be coming right back on. So you have the Streamlabs desktop? Is that where you...
I just got, I mean, as we were doing this, I
thought, gotcha. Yeah, I went on with Jase Medical from Naked Afraid, and he got on, I think, on his laptop, then on his phone, and it went pretty smoothly.
Well, it was weird that it was happening for Brian, too. I wonder if it's the link, something in...
It could have been. I tried to redo it all and send a new link, but it just didn't. And when I restarted it, you guys were on for some reason. All right, BSO, I see you in the chat. Let me know if you can hear us, if you can hear myself as well as the doctor.
Here I am. Made it. I hope.
All right, Brian, let me know. I think Ashley's trying to call me. I don't think she knows that you're on.
Oh, Ashley.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Still waiting on the people to come back. There's about 4 people on here right now. We lost a lot of people when things went south.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Definitely unfortunate. All right, Brian, in the chat, let me know if you can hear us. All right, people are starting to come back. I'm texting him to make sure he can see us. It says I'm in echo mode, so I need to figure out what's going on with that. All right, can you still hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. All right, Mel in the chat, let me know if that's better. Sometimes the chat's a little bit slow to answer. They're still saying they hear an echo, which makes no sense.
Echo on when you talk or when I talk?
Chat, let us know. Is it an echo when I'm talking? Or is it an echo when the doctor's talking? Or both of us?
What I can do is, just to be real safe,
if you have the desktop, you should probably turn the audio in the mixer off for the desktop audio. All right, so my wife's on. She says the echo's gone, but the doctor's echo is still there. So if you have the desktop app, on the right under mixer, it says desktop audio. Just turn that one off.
Oh, let's see. Let's try this one. How about that? Any different?
They say it's all good now. All right, chat. Let's welcome Dr. Rowland, who's the founder of Jase Medical. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. Oh, can you still hear me?
I can now.
Oh, okay, good. So I guess the first question we should ask is, what's the story behind Jase Medical? What inspired you to start the company?
Well, okay. Let me just, before I get into that, I want to double check. Am I okay without an echo now?
Yeah, chat, he's okay without an echo, right? Ashley jumped on and said the echo is gone.
Okay.
So we should be good.
Great. Well, let's see. Settle in here. How did Jase get started? So I'm a family medicine physician by trade, and I've worked in a few places around the country. This was around 2017, 2018. So we're talking a few years before the pandemic. I was working at a hospital on our southern border in New Mexico, and just a regular community hospital, working on the inpatient service. And I'll remember, I still, I've told the story enough, of course, I'll never forget the day, but I think even without the story, because it really was a red letter day for me. It was every morning we'd have meetings with the team, and before we get started seeing patients, and the hospital pharmacist came in as he usually would. And this day he let us know that there was a particular medication that really any physician would be familiar with, especially anyone who works in emergency departments or with really sick patients. It's an injectable antibiotic that is kind of the go-to. It's one of the few go-tos that we use when someone's really sick. We don't know exactly what's causing it. We know that they likely have a bacterial infection, and they need something right now. The pharmacist let us know, hey, that this particular medication, Zosyn is the name of it, was out of. We had just a little bit left, and that if you wanted to use it, you had to get approval from the pharmacy to make sure that everything was okay. And at that moment, it was just this big what kind of WTF moment, because I'm in the United States. It's pre-COVID. You could get whatever you wanted whenever you wanted it, especially in a top-tier healthcare system. How in the world? And that day became almost like a regular thing, where every week we'd get, hey, this particular medication or this IV fluid or whatever it was is in short supply. So that was that moment that caused me to stop and say, what's going on? Fast forward a couple more years, and we get into the pandemic. Now, over that period of time, I dug in and started doing my own research and found out, which was totally news to me at the time. I'm embarrassed to say that I had no idea as a someone in the healthcare system, as a physician in the healthcare system, I had no idea that in the United States we have no ability to produce our own generic medications. All of that production capacity has gone overseas, really to China, to India, a few other countries. But even those other countries, it seems like all roads lead back to China. They all get their active pharmaceutical ingredients from China. So that was very eye-opening to me, concerning, because anytime we're talking about something production occurring across on somewhere on the other side of the globe, in and of itself would be concerning, and that's what caught my attention. Now, fast forward to the pandemic. Now we've got a pandemic originating out of China, just so happens, and the world is, everyone's scared. There's all this uncertainty, and I was part of that group, and that happened to be about the same time that I moved my family. I started a new practice, and in starting that practice for the first time, I could, again, embarrassed to admit, and I would argue that most physicians are unaware of the true cost of the medications that they prescribe. As I started my practice on my own, I finally was able to kind of see behind the curtain and see what did these medications actually cost, these generics, and they're very affordable. So you put the two together, you've got a supply chain that is at significant risk. You look at our drug shortage list. The FDA maintains one. There's another one maintained by a pharmacy group that's actually a little better. And there's hundreds of medications on that list on any given day, and it's been growing steadily the last few years of medications that are in shortage. Whether it's geopolitical tensions with China, whether it's natural disasters at the point of origin, or here, whether it's you yourself are just in a spot where you don't have quick access to healthcare. There's any number of reasons why, right? Why you might need access to medications ahead of time. That combined with the fact that these medications are very affordable. So ultimately, I kind of packaged all that together. And the last question was, can I do this? How can I do this legally? How can I be medically appropriate in the decision-making process here to provide people this access? All of that took a couple of years of a lot of research. The telemedicine was a big part of this, making sure that there was a way to do this that was compliant with every state's regulations. And out of all of that, Jace was born. So that's how Jace came to be.
Yeah, that's a lot of news that people probably didn't understand is that a lot of the generics are coming out of other countries.
Yeah, it's so if you look at what we consume in the United States every day, as just consuming pharmaceuticals for whatever reason, it's 95-ish percent of those medications are generic, not brand name. We're talking about seizure medications, blood pressure, thyroid, anxiety, depression, antibiotics, all of the above. So those are all generic medications. That's what we depend on day to day here in the United States. Of that group, virtually 100% are produced offshore. This happened over a decades-long period of time, and it was a concerted effort. Certainly, there's evidence you can look back and look at the kind of how this happened. Follow the money. That was a big part of this. These are generics. The margins are really slim, but countries like China definitely made a concerted effort to control this market, to subsidize certain players, and to be able to push others out to where now they really do control the global supply. Certainly, they have the lion's share of the global supply. And we are the same as any other country. We're in the same line as other countries are, hoping that we can continue to get our medications from them. And so that in and of itself, and that's been the message that we've been really pushing, because it was the genesis of Jace. But I will say, after we've now been doing this for nearly 4 years, I come to find out that there are no shortage of other very, I guess, viable reasons why this type of a service is vital and really is kind of a life and death thing. It's not just in case one day there's a war that knocks off between us and China. That yes, that's a real threat, but people are living daily with limited access to healthcare, for all kinds of reasons that we could get into. But any one of them is enough that hopefully, once people learn the risk that's here, there's a lot of risk that we're living with every day, but there is a solution. A few years ago, there wasn't a solution, and now there is. So while we wait for the government to figure out how to bring production back to the U.S. and how to encourage that, how to patch this national security hole that we have, in the meantime, it's really up to individuals to empower themselves, and that's what we're all about. It's all about empowering people to be able to take this matter into their own hands, provide the care that they need for themselves and their family.
Yeah, and at Survival Summit, most of our audience understands that we believe heavily in PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. We want to have a plan for everything: shelter, fire, water, food, land nav, signaling. Medical is a huge piece of that. And I know, Doctor, you can't see it, but I'm going to show them the Jace case. This is one of the Jace cases. It comes with 5 different antibiotics, and I also got some ivermectin myself as an add-on for this. And there's a link in the bio if you guys want to check out Jase Medical. So my next question would be, what do you think, as your opinion as a doctor, what are the biggest medical risks that people should prepare for in not just grid down or any type of emergency situation?
Yeah, great one. So, when you held up the Jace case, that's kind of our hero product. It's the starting point for everything. And there's a lot of thought that's gone behind why and what's in it. The why is at a starting point because everyone at one point or another, at some point in your life, will need access to antibiotics. Whether that's in our current system where, it's whatever common diseases are out there, things like pneumonia, sinusitis, UTIs, those common infections that, when we're talking about bacterial infections, they're virulent is the word I'm looking for, but when you compare them to viral infections where, rest, some vitamin supplementation, fluids, you're able to fight those viral infections off most of the time. Bacterial infections are different and typically require a little extra help. So everyone at one point or another is likely to need an antibiotic. The other part of our service is the Jace Daily, the medications you take for a chronic condition every day. And again, I'll try and stay on track here, but that Jace Daily is the first one that we want people to start with. Now, what's in it is a selection of 5 antibiotics that are going to cover all of those common things that I listed, but we also want to think about, in a grid down scenario, in a scenario where the healthcare system might be overrun, things have gone really bad, you're going to see a resurgence of things that we don't typically have to worry about in our country, whether that's contaminated water, which used to be one of the top causes of death. Is dysentery. It's diarrhea. You get whatever's infecting that water, and you end up with a bad infection, and you end up getting dehydrated from just too much diarrhea. Those types of things are where a simple scrape in a dirty area gets, again, with dirty water and in an environment that where these things are floating around, that simple cut turns into an infected cut, turns into sepsis, turns into death. So we want to also cover for those things that we kind of take for granted nowadays. And then on that list as well would be some of the most deadly things in a grid down scenario. If there was a biotear incident, for example, the most common agents that have been, or the most likely, I should say, the most likely agents that have been identified are plague, tularemia, and anthrax. So you want to have something to cover for those things as well. So that's what that kit is. It'll cover for biotear. It will cover for all the most common things and the most deadly things that you're likely to encounter. It's a long list. But what you'll find is that everything is very thoughtfully placed. Sometimes we get requests from people who are familiar. Well, do you have this antibiotic because that's the one they took in the past? And I'll tell you that a lot of thought went into these particular 5, into the amounts that you get them in. There's a reason why you have 120 doxycycline tablets in our kit, which is unique, and that is because that's what you would need in the event of an anthrax biotear attack. You would need to take that medication for 2 months straight. So the counts are important, and the type of medication in there is important. And then you mentioned ivermectin. So we want people to start with that 5, and then add on things that might be pertinent to you or important to you. Ivermectin's a great add-on. There's quite a few other choices there. We want to let people kind of configure the kit with whatever they may be in need of, and maybe they've got something else that they've already been able to store away, and so we've got those add-ons as well. But that's the starting point.
Yeah, that's great. So we do have a question from one of the people in the chat. Mike Vogel says, can antibiotics go bad? Should people store them, or how should people store them to maximize shelf life?
So antibiotics, like any medication, can go bad. I guess when I say, and this is going to take, I'll try and do it quick because there's actually a lot of nuance to this answer. I'd say previous years ago, older antibiotics were formulated in a different way, such that as they degraded, actually some of them degraded into dangerous substances, toxic substances. And so taking an older medication was a bad idea. Potentially you could be actually taking a poison. Nowadays, and especially with the medications that we provide, the antibiotics that we've selected, they don't degrade into a toxic substance. What you will get over a long period of time is a slow degradation in the potency of the medication. So while you might have your medication today, it's 100% potent, 5, 10, even 15 years later, it will still have potency, but it might be 80%, 85%. And so when it comes to our recommendation, now we've got to advise people that there's laws on the books. A pharmacist is required to put a 1-year expiration date on a medication once it leaves his hands and it goes to you. The manufacturer they have their expiration dates that are typically anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And then there's the reality, I should say, of how long those medications really last. In a grid down scenario, in a scenario where you really have very limited access, you might never be able to find medication again, and you've got some older medication in your kit, as long as it's not wet, it's been stored properly, there's a good chance that medication's still going to be effective. Now, the other side of this is these medications are relatively accessible from a cost perspective, and so maintaining a supply of fresh medication isn't impossible to do, and is something that is accessible for most people.
Yeah, great question, Mike Vogel. I appreciate it. So I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned some other medications for chronic conditions. Do you guys have things like things for insulin or blood pressure meds yet? And if you don't, do you plan on carrying them in the future?
Yeah, we do. So when you go to our site, you go to jace.com, and you're immediately presented with an option to basically go down the path for these emergency medications or go down the path for our Jace Daily service. The reason they're separate is because there's a couple of different questions for the Jace Daily service, and we're trying to keep it as easy as we can for those folks who aren't in the chronic condition category. And so if you go down that Jace Daily, there's hundreds and hundreds of medications on that list, and I've touched on a few of them. But really, think of any condition other than opiate medications, controlled substances. We don't deal with those. We're not able to provide an extra supply of those, but everything else is pretty much on the list. Anxiety, depression, seizure, thyroid, cholesterol, blood pressure, all of those. You mentioned insulin. Insulin is a service that we haven't advertised really heavily on. It's a pretty specialized process to make sure we can get the right insulin for you in the amount in those 6 months to a year supply. But the big part of that, as diabetics, if there's anyone listening who takes insulin will know, is the cost. So to get a 6 months or 12-month supply can be pretty expensive. We will do it. We can do it. We're happy to facilitate that. That might involve reaching out to our customer service saying, hey, I take this kind of insulin. Is this something you can get for me? How much would it cost? And we're happy to price everything out and figure it out for you. And we do that. So it's not as heavily advertised.
That's great. Yeah. So I never checked because I don't have any chronic issues, but I was thinking about it because the original founder of Survival Summit is type 1 diabetic.
Oh, there you go.
And kind of makes me think, and we've had some people ask questions on social media before saying, hey, what do I do if I'm a diabetic? How do I get enough insulin? Because they can't seem to get it from their regular doctor. Even if they're going off grid or somewhere, they just can't seem to get it in a longer term to prepare.
It's because everything goes through insurance, and the insurance company just has it's just not in their, their system isn't built to approve these kinds of requests for extended supplies. From a safety standpoint, as a physician that's treated diabetics, I think it's the other way. It would be malpractice to withhold an extended supply from a diabetic, especially if there's someone who's going to a risky area or might be cut off from their supply. There are few medications that people take on a daily basis that are as vital to their life as a type 1 diabetic and insulin. I mean, it's a short list. The others, you could go a few days, you could go a week or two without, but that's one you can't. So certainly something that our diabetics live in, and gosh, talk to people over COVID diabetics over COVID who had a hard time leaving their home to get some of this stuff. It's real. It's a real concern.
Yeah, the former founder of Survival said the original founder actually had an issue during COVID because they were having shortage issues, and he was really worried that he wasn't going to be able to get it. Marjorie Mahuda in the chat says, if I get meds through your service, will it affect what I get from my regular doctor?
Oh, that's a great question. That's not one that I've had, but it's one that I can speak to. Okay, so again, I'm sorry, all my answers are nuanced. The quick answer is no, it won't affect. Now, we have had every once in a while, we'll have someone who's, I can tell you an example of someone who went to an emergency department. They were sick, they went into the emergency department. The emergency department pulled up their records, and there's a national kind of central database that isn't perfect, but it's the best that we have right now that the pharmacies use to see what else, what other medications might you be on, what medications have you had filled before. And in this case, the physician saw that this patient had all these antibiotics and was like, what's going on here? How could this person must be really sick or what? And here they are and that kind of raised a red flag for them. And the patient had to explain, no, I haven't taken any of those. It's to have just in case, et cetera, et cetera. And they wrote back to us just kind of, hey, how did they get my records? How did they know that? We don't report. There's no requirement, and we don't. Our doctors don't have to put your records on any I guess, central database, other than when a medication is filled by a pharmacy, because it's electronic. It does go into this record for the pharmacy, kind of specifically dealing with those medications. So it shouldn't affect anything. There's no doctor to doctor communication. We encourage everyone to have a doctor, and that doctor should know what your concerns are and that you've done this, because we want to spread awareness. All these doctors should be okay with it and should be doing it themselves. But if you do run into an issue, it's probably going to be like I explained, where you go into someone who doesn't know you, pulls up a pharmacy record and sees that you've been dispensed these medications in the past. I can tell you, of the 4 years that we've been doing this, many kits sold, that's happened twice, and both of them were fine. They just had to explain what they were doing.
Oh, that makes sense. My next question is, do you guys you offer things like the EpiPen as well?
Yep. EpiPen, albuterol inhalers, those would be in our daily side of things. Now we hope to be able to start including that EpiPen for everybody. It's something that I, as a physician, even if you don't have a allergy or an anaphylactic reaction to bee stings, for example, but your kids might have a friend over at your house that does, and so if they're not cheap, unfortunately, they're still a little bit pricey, but we do offer those. Right now, you do have to have some you have to let us know that you've been diagnosed with an allergic reaction. You've had an EpiPen dispensed to you before, and then we're happy to give you extras and to have extras on hand. But we're hoping to get that to where we can justify doing that for everybody.
Yeah. Is there an expiration on the EpiPens?
There is, and now talking about the expirations, pills, capsules. I mentioned those longer periods of time. Definitely apply to a pill or capsule that's been a solid form medication that's stored properly. As soon as you get into injectables, like what would be in an EpiPen, you've got to be a lot more careful. You're not going to have the same longevity. They're going to be more affected by things like heat, or being frozen. And so there are expiration dates, and that's one that you don't want to not be as potent. If you're having to use an EpiPen with an anaphylactic reaction, you want to know it's good. So that's one I would recommend, rotating and keeping up to date with the expiration.
All right. So Rabbit Hole in the chat says he's been studying natural herb remedies. He wanted to know, how did we handle medication prior to the age of pharmaceuticals? Well, my first answer for that would be people had a much shorter lifespan before pharmaceuticals.
So that's great. Yeah, this is fun. So all of our antibiotics are derivatives of natural substances, and there are people out. I'm not one of them. There are people out there who can tell you, where the medicine from these comes from, and there certainly are, call them herbal, these other natural remedies that could be used if you don't have access. Now, what you're going to find, I think, is efficacy and potency are going to be the hard things there. They just don't compare. Now, if you had no other option, then yes, I would encourage that. And unfortunately, the knowledge is just few and far between have that kind of knowledge. Then you mentioned that, people actually, and you're right. And if you go back about 100 or maybe 100 to 150 years ago, and you looked at the top 5 causes of death, you're going to find bacterial infections at the root of almost all of those. Back in the day, you got a UTI and it spread to your kidneys. You had kidney failure, so you can look up some of these causes of death and kidney failures on there. Pneumonia that's overwhelming, sepsis from infections. So the top causes of death were all related to bacterial infections, and we've eradicated most of that. Nowadays, we really do. We take it for granted. When you get a little illness, a little UTI, no big deal. You take some antibiotics for 3 days, and your UTI is cleared up, and we don't see kidney failure as a result. It happens now and again, and those are the people that end up in the hospital. But previous to the advent of antibiotics, previous to World War II, people ended up just dying. I don't want to downplay that there are natural things you can do um, to help in this, but I wouldn't I don't agree that you could find an equivalent substitute in a natural remedy to a modern day antibiotic.
And if it were me and I was going to trust my life on an antibiotic, I would want to know that I was the best natural herbist, you know,
Yeah.
that I could make the concoction perfect to be able to handle whatever situation I have. Because otherwise, it'll be like a couple hundred years ago. Oh, he has a fever? Well, say goodbye to Joe because Joe's dead now. He's
Yep.
not going to last very long.
Yep.
Thanks, Rabbit Hole, for that question. I appreciate it. My next question is, do you see a future where Jase Medical might have survival medical kits such as trauma kits or any kits like that? Just out of
Yes.
curiosity.
That's all I'll say.
Okay.
Yes.
So it sounds like you might have some stuff in the works, and we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Yeah. We're really excited about some things coming down this year. So stay tuned.
All right, awesome. My next question, are there any legal or regulatory challenges that people need to be aware of when storing the emergency antibiotics?
Not for not for the end user. For us, yes. For the people, the pharmacies, the ourselves as a as a platform that brings together patient, physician, and pharmacy and has some responsibility here. Yeah, and so that's where we take a lot of effort in educate. I had a really hard time. You can probably tell by my long-winded answers here. I had a really hard time in the insurance working through a typical in a clinic that deals with insurance and all because I didn't have time. I got 10, maybe 10 minutes with the patient. When I went into private practice and eliminated that piece of things, I could spend an hour with my patient. We could talk about why we're doing this and what are the nuances behind all of this, and let's make a decision together. Um, and and so when it comes to the like your question now with the responsibilities, that's why we spend a lot of time saying yes, your meds expire, but you should be aware of this. Um, as far as a person storing medications, no, there's not a regulatory agency out there that says, hey, you've got expired medications in your kit or in your cabinet, and that's illegal. You should throw them out.
So essentially, it's like going to their regular doctor who handles basically all the compliance with federal and state laws, and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah. When it
yeah.
comes to making sure yes, exactly. These are licensed physicians, licensed pharmacies that have boards of pharmacy and boards of medicine in whichever state you're in that have to go through a lot of those hoops. And yes, there's people making sure that we're doing things above board. So as far as all that goes, this is not a website you go to where you get some meds imported from India or Canada or wherever it is. This is all U.S. based, U.S. Approved, and yeah, confident that none of that is an issue for that. We've done all those checks.
Okay. We have two questions in the chat. One is from Mel. Mel says, "What is the chance of becoming immune to antibiotics?"
Okay, this brings up antibiotic stewardship is what we call it in the healthcare community. Um, Antibiotic stewardship is two parts, and unfortunately, we typically only focus on one side, and that is using antibiotics when they are appropriate. The other side of that is that if we're too heavy on that side, we actually withhold them when we should have been using them. But basically, what we need to be concerned about here is resistance, and that's something that's been in the media for the last 20 years. I think the public has received a lot of education. Back in the day, any viral respiratory infection like common cold, you get thrown a Z-Pack. Those days are no more, and that's good because if you're constantly taking a Z-Pack every time you get a cold, then yes, in theory you are building. It's not so much that you yourself are building a resistance. It's the bacteria that may be present in your body that ultimately build a resistance to that medication. And so we want to be sure that we're not treating viral infections with antibiotics, and that when we do treat with antibiotics, we're treating with the right antibiotics for the right amount of time. So that's why you always are told by your doctor, hey, even if you feel better, finish this course of antibiotics. Now, interestingly, what we've seen, I can specifically for UTIs, we used to prescribe, say, for an uncomplicated, a woman who gets a UTI, we'd prescribe her a full week's worth of an antibiotic. That then went down to 5 days, and it's down to 3 days is the recommended time. But I guess to keep to not go too long here, you can the bacteria can build a resistance, and so yes, it's important to be prudent when you're taking these medications, and to not just assume that it's bacterial. I better take my medication. We encourage people to use, if they've got a healthcare professional friend, ask them, tell them your symptoms, what's going on. They may recommend an antibiotic, and hopefully you've already got that in your Jace Med kit. And if not, if you're really out there and you've got no way to contact anybody, we send a very useful med guide that will talk about what are the symptoms to look for. And then if you have those symptoms, what medication should you consider and how should you dose it for yourself? And that's included in all our kits.
Great. And there's another part of that too, is there's a lot of telemedicine nowadays. So if you guys have even your regular doctor, you can do telemedicine probably with your own doctor. Just ask them about it. I think it saves a lot of time. You don't have to wait in the waiting room because we know how doctors are sometimes. You might be waiting 2 hours before you see them, unfortunately.
We've had a number of people writing in with just that, where they were so grateful they were able to get a hold of the doctor, or actually what's happened more often than not is we've had, for whatever reason, it seems to happen with dentists often. They'll get an infection, a tooth infection, and it's the weekend. Dentists aren't around no matter what on a weekend. So they know it's an infection. They end up taking one of these antibiotics. They finally get in on a Monday or a Tuesday, and the dentist or whoever is congratulates them. You kept yourself out of the hospital. So glad you're able to get on that medication. So there's a timeliness component here in addition to the convenience that you're talking about. Having these on hand. It's easier to get a hold of someone on the phone and have them say, yes, that's the medication you should take, than it is to get in your car, go down to the pharmacy. Hopefully they've got the antibiotic in stock, and get home and take it. You've already got it. Great.
Yeah. Marjorie Mahuta in the chat has a question. It says, do I have to have scripts to get meds from Jase Medical?
So yes, but that's part of our process, is we provide those scripts through the physicians that we work with. So you come to the website, you go through the order process. Like I mentioned, it's a few questions about your health. That gets sent to a physician. You do need to have contact with your own physician. We want to make sure that you've got support. So there is a question on there that says, have you been seen by a physician? I believe it's in the last 2 years. And if you can't say yes to that question, then we're unable to continue the process. So assuming you're under the care of a physician, then that's all we need to know. We will provide the scripts. Our physicians will provide the scripts. Those scripts will get sent to the pharmacy that we have pre-negotiated the best rates with, so you don't have to take that script and go and pay retail cash out-of-pocket rates at wherever your neighborhood pharmacy is. And then that pharmacy packages everything and sends it to you. So that whole process shouldn't take more than 10 minutes for your side of things. And then depending on where you live in the country, those meds should be on your door anywhere from 3 days to a week at the most. So again, yes, you do need prescriptions because these are prescription medications, but we provide the prescription.
And remember, everybody, if you answer no to that 2-year question, that means you're not doing your yearly physical with your doctor and you're already screwing up. So make sure you get to your doctor, do your physical every year. Don't take 10 years off from the doctor. There was a time where I must have not gone to the doctor for about 7 or 8 years. And I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we definitely don't want this to be a replacement. We don't want you to get stocked up on medications so that you never have to talk to a doctor again. That's not the intent here. We want you to have these for all the reasons we've stated. But you need support. You need that support from a healthcare professional.
Yep. Another question from Brian from Survival Gear BSO, a good friend of mine. Any plans to bring a vet on board to get medications for pets at home?
Same answer as before.
So Brian, that sounds like a maybe.
absolutely on the radar.
All right, excellent. So do you have any new products that have come out recently in the last week or the last month that you do want to let people know about? Something?
We've been working on most recently. There's some stuff behind the scenes that will be out in the next give it 4 weeks, and then throughout the year. Exciting stuff that you'll see when it comes out. As far as, but other than that, what we've been focusing on is we're kind of perfecting the process. We want to streamline the encounter, make it easier. As we've grown, like, that add-on list, we started with like 2 add-ons. I think it was Zofran in case you got nauseous, and an antifungal pill for uh, that. That was your options for the Jase case. We've now got, I don't know, 18 plus add-ons, and we continually add on stuff for the chronic medication. So it starts to get more complicated. We try to pre-configure kits. We've got a travel kit. We've got just a UTI kit. We have a kit for missionaries. So all these use case kits. So we're trying to streamline all that, clean up the process and the website, make it easier. We also are going to start offering things that maybe are over the counter or medical supplies, like pulse oximeters, electric ear scopes, things that might help in your care at home, things that I would provide or encourage my concierge private place patients to have. So we want to, and that doesn't require a physician visit, so that's going to be an easier checkout process. So all those are things to look for in the next few weeks. Otherwise, we're working on lowering cost of medications. We're working on compounding our own ivermectin. A lot of things in the works.
Speaking of ivermectin, Heather Lee just put in the comments, how difficult is it to get approved for an ivermectin add-on?
It's the same as it is for any of the other meds, which is to say not difficult. There's really, off the top of my head, I can't think of any significant contraindications to ivermectin with other medications you may be taking. So it's just as easy as selecting it. Now you have 2 choices. You can do a compounded ivermectin, which is significantly cheaper, or you can do the regular ivermectin. Comes in a smaller 3 milligram tablet, and because of supply and demand in the United States, unfortunately, these medications they're pennies. If you go anywhere outside the U.S., in Africa, where it's used a lot to prevent river blindness, it's pennies, and we're paying a huge markup.
So basically, we're being robbed blind by the pharmaceutical company. Is what it sounds like.
By the manufacturers, and it's just a supply-demand thing.
Yeah.
So those are your options. Yes, you can get ivermectin. You can get both. You could get the regular one or the compounded one. Knowing the process that the compounders go through and where they get their medications, I'd be confident in using the compounded version, especially given the cost savings.
All right. I had 2 more questions for you myself. One is, you may carry these already, so I apologize for asking, but I spent a lot of time working in the tactical industry for a company called Sheepdog Response, and a lot of what they use, a lot of the military guys like to use that combat pill pack, which is basically moxifloxacin, I believe it's 400 milligrams, Melexicam, 15 milligrams, and acetaminophen, kind of as a in-the-field, off-grid type of...
Yeah. Who have you been talking to on my development team? That's funny that you would... that's all we've been talking about the last...
Is it really?
Yeah. As of today, today, no, we don't have moxifloxacin on the site. It's in the very same category as ciprofloxacin, which is included in our kit, but specifically for what you're talking about, which is it is given to in the military, especially. It's for dirty gunshot wounds, those kinds of nasty bleeding, open wounds, where there's all kinds of different bugs that could be involved, and you want to cover for everything. That's what you're talking about. Yes, stay tuned.
All right, awesome. So I had another question. It might be kind of a funky one, but in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest medical preparedness myth that you'd like to debunk? Something maybe that you hear often that may not be accurate. I know that's kind of a very broad question.
Give me a second. So, a medical preparedness myth. Um,
I couldn't think of one, so I probably shouldn't even have asked the question. Oh no. I think his screen froze. Uh-oh. I think we lost the doc. I think the screen froze. Let me see if I can. Oh man, I don't. I think he got disconnected actually. I don't see him on here anymore. You guys can still hear me and see me though, correct? Brian, let me know if you can still see and hear me. Something happened and oh, I think he just lost power. Yeah, so yeah, I thought he was still thinking too, but then I was like, wait a minute, he's had the same look for too long. Something's going on. I guess he's having a tropical storm. He's in Hawaii and he just lost power. But hey, listen, we really appreciate him coming on. We really appreciate all the questions that he answered. It's, whoop, somebody says my shirt keeps rubbing on my mic. That could be my beard, actually. My beard might be rubbing on the mic. We appreciate you, Dr. Rowland. Well, he probably can't hear us because he lost power. But that is A-OK. He said, speaking of being, this is through text, speaking of being prepared, I do have backup power. It'll take a few minutes to boot back up and get my Starlink system up and running again. You know, he's actually the first person who I think I've known that has Starlink. So if he does come back on, I'd love to know, you know, how well Starlink does work. All right. So he may come back on. He might. He may not. It depends on how that goes. But I'll show you my kit again. And actually, this time I'm going to zoom in for it since I don't have to worry about the collab cam kind of making things a little bit more funky. So this is the base kit. I did add the ivermectin. That's an add-on. But it comes with the basic antibiotics. And it does come with a lot of informational cards. Even with, it gives you the dosing for like the ivermectin. It comes with a lot of great information so that you're not just in the dark about what things are. There's a lot of really good information in these kits. Yeah, and Jace Medical says Dr. Rowland lives what he speaks on. And that's amazing. We were really happy to have him on again. For everybody who came on the first time, I'm really sorry that we just didn't have it right, and we just totally screwed things up. I don't know what was going on. I didn't have this issue in the past. That was the first time that it's ever happened today. And of course it happens when a very important guest comes on. But hey, we still got through it. I'll just have to go back into YouTube and delete that first live because I don't want people seeing that one forever where I'm bumbling around trying to figure out how to get him on. Mel says, been a great stream. Thank you for Survival Summit and Jase Medical. Again, if you guys want to check out Jase Medical, there is a link in the bio on all of our social media, on YouTube, Facebook, X, everywhere. Go to the link in the bio. It'll say Jase Medical Emergency Antibiotics. And I think it's a really, really important thing to have when it comes to preparedness. Again, pace planning. You need to have everything. Shelter, fire, water, food, signaling, land nav, medical, not just trauma gear, not just first aid kits, but general antibiotics. Because like the doctor said, and like I had mentioned before, without antibiotics, you could die from something that normally would be no issue. Take an antibiotic for a few days to a week, and you're going to be okay. Otherwise, you may die. And I also agree that, yes, can you make antibiotics from natural remedies? You can. But to make it as potent, to make it correctly, are you really going to risk your life, you know, unless you're just an amazing expert, you know, basically a chemist using natural materials to make it? It would be very difficult. Mel says, I also have Starlink and it has worked great here, but does have issues with Apple phones. Huh, interesting. I have, well, I'm in northern Vermont at a rental, technically, for the company, so I don't actually know what the internet. I know it's fiber, which is weird because it's on the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. While we're waiting, just in case the doctor comes back, if he doesn't, then that's okay. We're glad he came on. We're glad he got to answer all your questions. Make sure you go to the link in our bio as well, or just go right to Amazon. Actually, hold on. I can zoom back in on this book. Give me 1 second. I clicked the wrong button. So PACE planning, your guide to emergency preparedness and bug out strategies, is now available. So in the first, I think in the first 24 hours, it hit number one. It hit a number one new release on Amazon in the category of, I think, survival out or outdoors survival. And then today it hit number one in, I think it was survival and preparedness. So it hit a new number one new release status on Amazon today in a second category. We're still waiting for it to hit a bestseller. So we hope that that will happen soon. We have a couple big names in the industry that are actually going to be, you know, talking about the book. A couple people already received the book, so I'm waiting for them to make a couple social media posts. And one of them is a fairly big name with about 1.5 million followers. So I'm hoping once he talks about the book that could push us into the bestsellers list. We shall see. And I have another gentleman on YouTube who has a much bigger channel than Survival Summits who's also going to be talking about the book as well. So we will see what happens. Yeah, we're currently ranked number 37 in outdoor survival skills. So I need to get, I need to get ahead of 36 more people to hit bestseller. But hey, having a number one new release in 2 categories feels pretty good. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, PACE Planning, check it out. You don't have to buy the soft cover. It's $24.95 right now. You could just buy the Kindle. It's only $9.99. Jace is in the chat and says we are still in the comments section. If there are simple questions, we can answer. So if you guys have a question for the doctor or Jase Medical in general, put them in the comments and they will be sure to answer your questions in the comments. You know, despite all the crazy issues that happened in the beginning of the stream, I'm glad that it went the way it did, and the doctor is, very intelligent, has a lot of great things that he talked about, and it seems like they have a lot of really cool stuff coming up. So, I actually didn't know that they did that many chronic daily issue medications. I had no idea until today. That's pretty amazing. This means that if you have chronic issues, then you're going to be able to, if it's insulin, it's probably going to be a little bit expensive, but you're going to have the chance, especially if you're going out of the country or if you're preparing to be off grid, preparing for some kind of an event, you're going to have the opportunity to have those medical supplies for a much longer period of time than you're likely going to get from your normal doctor. And that is going to be part of your PACE plan, because your primary, when it comes to medical, of course, is your doctor, your normal doctor. Maybe your alternate is, one of the clinics, one of the minute clinics. Maybe it's, obviously, if it's an emergency, you're going to the emergency room. Your contingency plan, this could be your contingency plan. Or it could be your alternate if some of those places are not open, if you're not able to get to a clinic or telemedicine or whatever it might be. Then you might have another contingency or emergency where you have a doctor that lives in your neighborhood or a doctor in your family or somebody that can help you with something beyond your capabilities. Mel asks, are you going to do an audiobook? I'm not 100% sure. So I thought about doing an audiobook for PACE planning, but it's there's a lot of bullet points and it's a lot of framework for all things related to PACE in terms of all the different categories. So it's not like a novel type of a read where I'm just kind of blabbing on about nonsense. It's really a breakdown of every category, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically framework. It's not like a reference guide necessarily, but it is kind of a reference guide per category, and there's 36 solid packed chapters with information that gives you the ideas of what your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency should be in every single aspect, basically, of survival and preparedness. So I'm not sure I was a little long-winded with that answer, but I'm not sure if it would make, I think it would probably make for a good audiobook. But if we did an audiobook, and especially if I did the audio myself, I would probably go off script so many times if I wanted to add information. So you're not really supposed to do an audiobook that way, so I don't know if that would work. I think I would probably screw that up, and I'd have to record it a million times to do it. You know, I need to figure something else out too. So the next time I do one of these collab cams, first I'm going to make sure the other person downloads Streamlabs, the actual platform, because it seems to be easier. But I don't think the doctor could actually see me in the video, so I need to figure that out. That could be something that's a setting on my end. Not that the doc really needs to see white-bearded hillbilly. What did that guy call me online? If you guys saw my post, he called me something else that I can't say over the stream. And that wasn't from a live stream. It was from an ad that I put on X. He apparently did not like my ad on X for some reason. All right, don't forget, Jace Medical is in the comments, so if you guys have any questions for them, put it in the comments and they will try to answer you. Mel says, I'll have to buy it and make Johnny read it to me. Mel, are you telling me you don't know how to read, or you just don't like reading? Because I know you know how to read. Anyway, make sure you pick it up. But hey, way more important, just check out Jase Medical. You know, you can use the link in the bio, and if you don't want to, we're an affiliate for Jase Medical, so we will make a small amount of commission. But if you don't want us to make commission, you can go right to Jase Medical direct too. It's not a big deal. We just think it's very important for you, for your family, to have an emergency backup plan when it comes to medical, especially with antibiotics. I mean, think about not just the extreme. You know, people always think kind of grid down because one of our main short films was based on grid down, but that really would be one of the worst scenarios. A high altitude EMP, you know, miles in the atmosphere that could cause the grid to cascade. Even a large solar flare, which would affect the transmission lines and everything that's connected to the power. It wouldn't affect vehicles because they're not connected to the power. There's not as many pulses in a solar flare than there is in an EMP. But a solar flare, if it takes down the grid, life as you know it is still going to be over, even if your vehicle runs. I think they wargamed 90% of the population could possibly be dead in the first year, maybe less. And a lot of people, it's not just going to be starvation. They're also going to die from dysentery, everything. There won't be any sanitation. You probably won't have running water. You'll basically go back to the times where people were dying at 20 years old, 30 years old, because there's no essential services. There's no trucks bringing in food to every city. And if you have to get somewhere and stay for a long period of time hoping that society comes back, or if you're just simply going to another country, you may be there for a while, maybe you're doing missionary work, or maybe you live off-grid and you're really far away and you can't get to the doctors. Like the doctor said, call your doctor or get on one of the telemedicine. Explain to them your symptoms, and if they can figure out what's happening, you'll have the antibiotics there to possibly save your life. Let's see. Heather Lee, Jace, what is the price for the kit that has with the ivermectin add-on? And Mel says, where do we find the link for Jace for your channel? That is in the bio. I can look that up right now, and I can put that link right in the chat. I'm not sure why I didn't do that before. Thank you, Mel. Let me just pull that up real quick, and I'll throw that in the chat for you guys. Just give me a second. My internet is acting a little strange at the moment. It's not supposed to be slow. This is supposed to be fiber. This is a very long link, unfortunately, but I am going to put it in the chat. But if you go to the link in the bio, it'll basically say Hi Page at Survival Summit, and it'll have a bunch of different links in there, and the Jace link is, I think, 3 links down, so you can't miss it. But I just popped it in the chat, so you guys should see it any second. Mel says, I will fight anyone that I do not know that wants to come and take my spring water. Yeah, you don't want people grabbing that source. Spring water is, especially if you have a natural fed spring. Like Marjorie Mahuda in the chat has a really, really, really nice natural fed spring. I won't tell you where it is or anything about it because it's none of your business. And I don't need people going up there and taking water from the spring. Not that you guys would do that. All right. I don't see that link actually made its way into the chat. That's very strange. Am I not allowed to put links in my own chat? I got rid of Streamlabs, by the way. So everybody who noticed that Streamlabs was being real weird the other day, please take note that I made it disappear this time. All right, I'm going to go to Bitly and try to shorten this link because it might have been an issue with the length of the link. So let me get on here real quick. Just pull a Bitly link. Of course, it's going to make me log in first. Why not? All right, let's see. All right, I believe. What is going on here? No, Bitly's being strange. I'm having all kinds of tech issues tonight. This is pretty crazy. Heather Lee wants to get some pricing. Welcome, Ambient Auto. Ambient Audio. I don't know why I said auto. By the way, Ambient, you still lost that bet, so you have to buy one of the books. It's been almost a week, so make sure you do that. Heather, you know what? I will pull up Jace's site right now. And I'll take a look for you. Just give me a second. We'll do a little exploring on the Jase Medical. I don't know why I have this earpiece in anymore. I don't need the earpiece anymore. Jace may have not gotten the power back. That's possible. They may not be in the chat anymore. I don't know if maybe there was something wrong with the satellite. They may not have been able to get it back up and running. But I'm going to go on there right now, Heather, and I'm going to look up some of the basic pricing. All right, let's see. So I'm going to look up the Jace. All right, here we go. Pricing and add-ons. I probably could just look up and see what... All right. So it looks like the base kit that has amoxicillin, the Z-Pak, ciprofloxacin, doxycycline, and metronidazole. I'm saying that completely wrong. It looks like $269.95. But remember, if you use the coupon code TSS, you'll get 10% off the Jace case. So I'm going to put that in the comments. Coupon code TSS, and you will get 10% off. Just go to the link in the bio and then put in that coupon code, and you should be good. And I'm going to go back on and look at some of the add-ons just so you guys can see. It is a very, very long list, by the way. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but like if you need albuterol, it's a $60 add-on. If you need, let's see, EpiPen, I believe that's $318. Hydrocortisone is $23. Ivermectin, if it's 12 milligrams, is $30. The 3 milligram, I believe, is $114. Methylprednisone is an extra $20 to add on. There's a lot. There's a ton of different add-ons in here. I mean, there's a very, very long list. And they also have now, it looks like a UTI case. Let me just kind of pop that open and see what that looks like. Ambient Auto says, we're waiting on my free book, Mel, but it never came. That's because you lost the bet, Ambient. So now you have to buy it. Bet's a bet, bro. I don't know what to tell you. All right, let me go back here. Let's see. I'm going to try to see if I can... I think I can pull a shorter link even just from my emails. Just give me a second, and I'll put that in the chat for you guys. All right, I just have to find it. It is pretty easy just to go to the bio, though. If you go to any of our social media channels and go to the link in our bio, it's pretty much the link in the bio is the same everywhere, and you will see the link to Jase Medical in there. Mel says, Ambient, you have to wait for your slow postal service. Yeah, if maybe your post office stops going on strike. You know. Heather Lee says, with a little dedicated saving, I could swing it on basic plus ivermectin. So if it's, you know, $270 or whatever it is, just, you know, zap 27 off that with the coupon code TSS. You'll save 10%. Can't go wrong there. I guess that's another reason to use my link is that you will get 10% off using the link. But in my opinion, emergency antibiotics are pretty important. But again, talk to your doctor. Make sure your doctor is aware of... If you're having issues, don't just guess. Don't guess and say, well, you know what, let's see. I'm feeling this, and I looked on WebMD, so I'm going to take Cipro. Or I'm going to take the doxycycline. Don't do that. You really need to know exactly what's wrong with you before you start taking antibiotics and medications. You are not a doctor, so don't try to guess. Like I said, even if you have to just do a telemedicine visit, explain your symptoms, it should be relatively simple. Like when I was in my mid-20s, for whatever reason, I used to get strep throat once a year. It doesn't happen anymore. I haven't had it in years and years and years. But I would know immediately if I had strep throat. Immediately. And I would just call my doctor and say, Doctor, I have strep throat again. Send a prescription to the pharmacy, please. Now, what would have happened if I was off-grid or out of town or out of the country and I knew I had strep throat and it became really bad? Well, if I had backup antibiotics, I can take care of that myself. So get some knowledge, get some good information, make sure you're talking to your doctor. Just don't try to wing it, that's all. Ambient Auto, what you drinking anti-EMP potion? No such thing, Ambient. I am actually drinking, this is the, what is it called? It's called the Cage. This is basically the hydration powder I mix with water. And the other one, Ambient, if you really must know, is my my spittoon, okay? So I'm drinking one and I'm not drinking the other one. How about that? Again, we really appreciate Jase Medical coming on. We appreciate the doctor coming on, especially having to wait for like 15 or almost 20 minutes for me to get my crap together and get stupid Streamlabs to do things properly. It went so smooth with EJ. When we had EJ on, it went really smooth. But I think Brian may have been right. I think because after the stream with EJ, when I looked at the video on my phone, EJ's audio was really good and mine was really low. So I think it was something strange that was happening within the system when I had someone else on. Jace is back in the comments, says you can always reach out to Jace with any questions. Unlimited reach outs to Jace is included in your purchase. We also include a very detailed med deck with every Jace case. So keep that in mind. And I think, I was going to show you guys something else, but I actually don't know what I did with it. Nope, I know what I did with it. So the med deck she was just talking about, I'm going to zoom in on the screen. Survival Gear BSO says use StreamYard. You know, I was going to use StreamYard, but I already paid for Streamlabs, the Ultra version. I guess I could always change it. All right, so this is the med deck that she had mentioned. This med deck goes through a ton of information. It tells you how to... Well, you don't want to look at me up that close again. Nobody wants to see that. It has a section on how to use the med deck. It goes by content by conditions. There's a ton of information that'll tell you symptoms. It'll give you the drug, the condition, the drug. There's so many different pieces of information. And this med deck isn't going to get ruined. It's not just regular paper. It's not going to get ruined in water. It's just not going to have a lot of issues. But like doxycycline, it'll talk about the adult dosage, talk about bite wounds, cellulitis, chlamydia, all kinds of stuff. Lyme disease. There's a lot of information on here that gives you directions on how to use it based on what your symptoms and what your actually issues are. Talks about side effects, when to avoid using it. There's a lot of information in this med deck. And this will come in your Jase case, the med deck. So again, go to the link in the bio. Make sure you guys check it out. I will be doing not just one video on some of the Jase Medical items. I'm going to be doing quite a few of them, and I'm also going to be cutting up the live with Dr. Rowland's answers on most of the questions, and I'm going to be cutting that up into segments, and I can probably put that into 10, 15 different videos, and all those videos are going to be on every social media platform that we have, which is pretty much everything. We're even on Lemonade and Clapper now. So Lemonade, Clapper, YouTube, Facebook, X. What else am I on? Obviously Instagram, YouTube, just the basic stuff, TikTok. If you guys haven't followed us on TikTok, make sure you do that. Lemonade's, I don't really use it that often. Clapper is almost like an American version of TikTok, but it's much smaller. There's not as many people that are on there. But it's not bad. And they also don't have as many restrictions as TikTok. So you can do firearms on there. There's a lot of things you can do on Clapper that you can't do on TikTok. And TikTok hates me in lives because if I even tell you guys to go to the links in my own bio or even Amazon, they say that it's not safe to send people to other places like Amazon. So how is that not safe? I have no idea. Amazon is one of the biggest platforms on the planet. They don't think it's unsafe. They just want me to push you to the TikTok shop at all costs. They don't want you going anywhere else except the TikTok shop. And I'm not going to do that. It's just not going to happen. Heather Lee says, oh, wow, I like that med deck. And it comes with a kit. Yeah, it's packed with information. It's really, really nice. And it's also, it's got this so you can hang it somewhere. You can put it on your backpack. Obviously, I keep mine in the kit. You definitely want to check that out. But yeah, they have a really long list of items that you can get, especially if you have daily medical issues that you need to keep a stock of things that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So I would 100 million % check that out, and I would definitely check out Jase Medical for sure. Let's see. Ambient Audio, when are we going to Survival Summit crypto coin? That's going to be never, because my luck, something would happen. Nobody, first of all, Ambient, nobody would buy the Survival Summit crypto coin. And even if they did, some big whale would come in, and then all of a sudden it would boost up, and then they'd rug pull it, and then they'd blame me and say that I crashed the coin, like the Hawk Tua girl. Which I'm not even sure if she actually did that. It may have been a little bit more nefarious than that. I don't think she did the rug pull herself. If you've seen her, she doesn't seem that smart to be able to do a multi-$50 million rug pull in the crypto space, but I could be wrong. And I don't know any of that for sure. This is just me talking, so don't try to sue me, anybody. But no, Ambient, there will never be a Survival Summit crypto. Definitely not. Mel, just the paperwork because I had it in my pocket for some odd reason. Ambient Audio says, how do you accidentally wash your Jase case? No, Ambient, you smartass. Let's say you have your med deck in your backpack, and maybe you don't have it in the Jase case, and maybe it gets wet. Well, then you don't have to worry about it because it's not going to get ruined. Or maybe, Ambient, your Jase case gets wet. I mean, water's a thing. Everyone, just so you know, Ambient, I've known him for a very long time. We were in a crypto server for quite a while. Ambient is a little bit slow, just a little bit, just a tiny bit. I'm just kidding, he's not. That's terrible, I shouldn't say that in a live stream. For the whole world to see. But the world isn't that big on here, so don't worry about it, you'll be fine. Oh, I think I missed a comment from Heather. It says, I prefer Ozarka and it's not filtered municipal water like so many bottled waters and liquid IV. Let's see. Let me go back through the comments. Oh, Ambient says Mel washed it. Wait, Mel, what? Did I miss that? Mel, wait a minute. Mel, you washed your Jace case? Never mind. I don't want to know how you did that. I kind of do want to know how you did that. Clearly, I'm not paying attention that much in the comments. That's pretty funny, though, if you washed your Jace case. Wait a minute. Ambient says he's just kidding? Hold on. You know what? I think we're going to have to get rid of Ambient out of this chat because he's making me look stupid, which I do really well on my own. I don't need Ambient to help me. Sometimes it is hard to keep up with the comments, I will say that. Thank you to everyone who asked. There was quite a few really good questions I didn't even have on my list, and I'm glad you guys asked because a lot of people were probably thinking the same thing. So Brian, Survival Gear BSO, I am going to look at StreamYard because what happened tonight was really, really terrible. And the other issue I have with Streamlabs is that, yes, you can stream also on Instagram, but with Instagram, in the multi-stream chat, you can't see the chat. So if anyone chats in Instagram, I can't see it on Streamlabs, which is one of the reasons why I don't stream on Instagram as well, because you can't see it. So maybe StreamYard is better. Maybe I'll have to cancel Streamlabs OBS and start StreamYard. There was another person who told me about StreamYard, and I was going to do it, but I had a little bit of familiarity with Streamlabs OBS, so I went back to Streamlabs. And my son was very familiar with it, and he actually helped me set it up. So I probably should take a look at StreamYard because I might be better off. Does anybody have any more questions for Jace? I don't know how long they're going to be in the comments. And I'm probably going to be jumping off fairly soon. I have to get up early tomorrow, and then I'm headed back home, so I'll be on the road for about 5.5, maybe 5 hours if there's no traffic. Luckily, well, no. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be leaving. I'll be headed out of town in Vermont probably 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on when the job closes. The only thing I don't like about this camera is sometimes when I move, it kind of does a little focus thing. It's a little bit strange. Survival Gear BSO, I'm on a live show every Thursday night, and StreamYard seems to work well, but I'm not the guy behind the scenes. Somebody from Honest Fox had mentioned that I should try StreamYard. They said it's very simple to use, so I'm going to look at that. And maybe I'll get it, and I'll practice with it, and I'll try it out. And if I think I can master it, then maybe I'll start using that instead of Streamlabs. Because what happened tonight it sucked. It was kind of unacceptable to have to make the doctor wait that long to be able to get on. I really don't know what was going on. Because when I restarted Streamlabs, I was able to get it back up, and he was still in there, and I could actually get him in, and I couldn't do that before. So it really makes no sense. I didn't change anything at all to make that happen. It just happened. Heather says, if a creator on TikTok makes a video post instead of a live telling people to shop elsewhere, do they still get penalized? No, because I do that all the time. I've made many, many videos where on a regular TikTok video where I tell people to go to a certain place, never had an issue. But if you do it on a live, they start to penalize you if you do it on a live. Jay says it was a great live stream. We'll be back in the future. Thank you, Jesse, for the invite. Great conversation and great questions. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you very much, Jace. Thank you, Dr. Rowland. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys go to the link in my bio and check out Jase Medical. Because again, it's a very, very important part of your PACE plan for overall preparedness. Medical is a big, big issue, especially if things go south or if you're unreachable to doctors and you have issues that are happening. This could literally save your life or save the life of someone in your family. God forbid you're on a hiking trip. Maybe it's a long-term off-grid situation where you're gone for a week. Maybe you get lost. Maybe you're really good at building shelters, building fires, and that you have enough food, you have enough water. What happens if, one of your kids with you or yourself somehow get some kind of an infection? What if somebody gets a small cut and it's not treated properly right away? It didn't get irrigated, it just got dirt in there, and all of a sudden you have an infection that could end up being life-threatening, especially if you don't know exactly when you're going to get out of that situation. This could save your life. So it really needs to be a part of your PACE plan. Ambient Audio says, definitely will be checking out Jace. I've heard them on the radio a few times, and I think up in Canada. Yes, so I do believe they do United States and Canada, and I think, as far as I know, they're the only company that does this, that does do it in Canada and the United States. I don't think there's one other, but they don't have anything in Canada. I know that for sure. So Ambient, you are in luck, but don't worry, Ambient, because sooner than you think, you'll be the 51st state. I'm just saying, I'm just totally talking crap here. That's probably never going to happen. Ambient probably hopes it does. But Ambient, even if Canada becomes a 51st state, I'm still not going to consider you in particular an American. I'm still going to consider you a Canadian. Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on. Heather, good night. Have a good night. Thanks for coming on. Turned out to be a pretty good stream, even with all the craziness that happened in the beginning, which I'll probably be thinking about for days and days and days about what happened. And I'll still be embarrassed in a week from now. But hey, oh yeah, that reminds me, I have to go delete that first live video so that nobody actually sees it. Because I do not want that. I don't want people to see the one where I couldn't figure out what was going on. Again, it was not my fault. Something happened with Streamlabs. I know that for sure. And something went terribly wrong because EJ literally did it on his laptop, and I think he even did it on his phone, and he had no issue whatsoever, just using the link. He didn't have to download the app. He didn't have to have Streamlabs. It was kind of crazy. So let's hope that we can solve that issue if we do another live with someone else on. Next Tuesday, we'll be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, you will probably see me live on TikTok. Maybe not tomorrow night. If it is, it'll be late because I probably won't be home until 9 or 10 o'clock at night Eastern. But you'll definitely see me at some point on the weekend on TikTok Live. I just don't know exactly when. So we'll see. Mel says, Jace was the easiest med order that I have. Yeah, they are very simple to order from. The questionnaires, it's really not difficult to do. And everything's legal. It's all done through real doctors. You don't have to worry about that. And I've done this a couple times, so if I went to the emergency room and they looked up my pharmaceutical record, they'd be like, what is this guy doing? Why does this guy have because I think previously I had a kit with, probably 10 or 15 add-ons. Everything from malaria pills to EpiPens, and I'm not even allergic to anything. But I have a friend who has a son who is allergic to some foods. So I, figured why not have one? Because if they ever come over and something happens, I should have one. And there's another gentleman on a job site before that was highly allergic to bees. So I thought it would make sense to have one on hand with me all the time, just in case something happened to someone. It'd be nice to be able to save someone's life if for whatever reason they don't have their own EpiPen or they don't have access to it for whatever the reason is. Same thing with a trauma kit. You sometimes may have things in your trauma kit that you may never end up needing for yourself, but if you happen upon a car accident somewhere, you may end up using that trauma gear on someone else. You may be saving someone else's life, putting on a tourniquet, packing a wound, hopefully you don't have to put on a, chest seal. And again, if you have a decompression needle and you're trying to avoid tension pneumothorax, you have to know what you're doing. You have to have the training. You have to at least have taken a TCCC course or be a paramedic. You need to be really careful because, yes, you probably can't get sued if you just, help someone for a basic injury. But if you're sticking someone with a decompression needle and slapping on a chest seal and you don't know what you're doing and you have no training, you will probably get sued. You might even get arrested. Potentially. That's not legal advice because I don't know for sure. But don't ever attempt to do anything medically if you don't have the training. It can be very dangerous. You could end up hurting someone pretty badly not doing it on purpose. Maybe you don't aim in the right spot and somehow you put a decompression needle in someone's heart. Just don't do it. You got to be really, really careful. Mel says, I just give a different name every doctor visit. Don't do that now, Mel, because they may snatch you up. INS may snatch you up and send you to some other country if they can't figure out who you actually are. You got to watch that these days. Then again, you look American, so I think you'd be all right. You should be okay. Brian, Survival Gear BSO. Now that the collab cam is not here, is my audio better? Because I would like to narrow down if it's something where there's two audio sources that are coming through Streamlabs that maybe somehow... I tried to adjust mine, but it won't let me adjust it any more than it already is. And I have it here on this wireless mic. I use the Rode 2 Wireless Go, and this is set to pretty much the highest that it's supposed to be. And I've never had an issue on stream by myself, but occasionally I've had issues on stream. Like with EJ, I was much quieter than he was. And I'll know because when I go back and watch this stream, I'll be able to tell if it's an issue. All right, I think I have blabbed on enough. If nobody has any more questions, I am going to float out of here. So make sure you go to the link in my bio to check out Jase Medical. And of course, to check out my new pace planning book, which will give you the framework and the guidance for all things preparedness, including bug out strategies. Everybody needs a pace plan in every aspect of preparedness. If you only have one plan and that plan fails, you're screwed. So have a pace plan. And I have some interesting news before I go. There is another company that is sending me some, basically their pace planning reference cards, and I think they're made on the Right in the Rain waterproof paper. And they have a whole series of basic cards all the way to advanced. And I haven't seen them. I need to check them out, but they might be something incredible to add to having like the pace plan book. But I'll check them out and I'll make sure I do a video after I get them and kind of go through them, and I'll show you guys up close what they are. It seems like a really good company. They also make something incredibly slick. So those of you who know me personally, I use on the nicotine pouches. I probably shouldn't, but I do. So the gentleman who makes those pace cards or reference cards actually uses these cases, these on cases. They're very small, and he has a two-way radio inside the case with an antenna that you can take out of the case and screw on the top. Now, of course, you're only going to get about a half-mile of range, but it just looks like a nicotine pouch, a nicotine box that holds the pouches, but it's actually a two-way radio. So I'm very, very interested to check those out. I hadn't seen them before. I didn't even know this company existed. And hold on, let me look up their company name real quick, just so I can let you guys know to go check them out. You think I would remember, but those who know me know I have a terrible, terrible memory. Just give me a second. I got to find them. I believe I followed them on my Instagram and some other channels. I say that and now I'm scrolling and I cannot find them. Unbelievable. Did I not follow them? All right, maybe I lied. I must not have followed them. Now I have to find them and follow them. Hold on. I will find out this company name. Just give me a second. I know they're on here. Oh, here it is. Mad Gear Company. So all one word, Mad Gear Company on Instagram, and I believe that's also their name on Facebook. So check out Mad Gear Company. They have a lot of interesting gear on their Instagram, and I can't wait for some of the stuff to come in so I can check it out. It's all about contingency planning, family preparedness, and making a plan for SHTF, which is shit hit the fan. And it was just, I saw them, they liked one of my videos on Survival Summit. And I went and looked at their site, and I said, wow, they have what could be the perfect companion to my book with their reference cards. So I'm really excited to get those and then show you guys those and go from there. And Survival Gear BSO, I'll let you know if those are really good, because I think you can even sell them wholesale. And if you like them, maybe throw them up on your website. Mel says your audio is great now, but I think you touched something when you grabbed the Jase case. It may have been your mic plug, because when you hit the plug, you scared the crap out of my dogs. Yeah, I probably did. I probably hit it with the case or bumped it or something. You know, I had a normal microphone, almost like a boom mic, but I don't know, it's sticking everywhere. I may go back to that, but I like these wireless mics. Something's getting funky though. When I have someone else in here, I think somehow it's splitting the audio and making it sound a little bit strange. So I need to figure that out. Or I might just give up and go to StreamYard, like Brian suggested. All right, I swear, I'm done talking now. I'm done blabbing. I will see you guys on Tuesday of next week. Otherwise, if you want to, check us out on TikTok, I'll be randomly streaming maybe late tomorrow night and probably at least Saturday, maybe even on Sunday. And then I'll be back here on YouTube, X, and Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We don't have a guest for next Tuesday. That could change between now and then, but right now we don't have a guest. But, Brian, Survival Gear BSO, if you're still on here, maybe we should get you on Tuesday. Survival Gear BSO they work with a lot of different instructors, and they know of a ton of different live training facilities and places where you guys can get amazing training. And I think he would be a really, really great guest to have on. So I will text him and see if he's not on here now. I'll text him and I'll find out if he wants to come on next week. And we'll